when you're on.
You're now live.
Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone who's attending the meeting this afternoon. Members of the public and the press who may well be out there, but we can't see you, and members of the committee. A few housekeeping points. Mobile phones should be switched off or put onto mute unless you're using it to hear. You can't leave the meeting during the presentation or debate of an application. If you leave, you'll be unable to vote on that application. If for any reason you believe you did not hear the entire debate, then please abstain when the time comes to vote. Remind members of the public and local members that they are present purely to observe the process. If I lose connection, then Councillor Price, as the Vice Chairman, will stand in until I can regain connection to the meeting. If another member of the committee loses connection, I may say to have a short adjournment in order to allow them to rejoin. We should go through the timing system here, but as we've only got one presentation, I'm not sure who will know what it is. I don't think we need to run through it. The chairman now is to invite the committee to switch on their microphones in turn and introduce themselves. I'll read your name and then introduce yourself, please. Councillor Beston.
Good afternoon, Councillor Beston.
Councillor Brodie. I think you're muted.
Apologies. Good afternoon, Councillor Jeff Brodie.
Councillor Cameron.
Good afternoon, Councillor Cameron, present here, Chairman.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Councillor Paul Fuller.
Councillor Hastings.
Good afternoon, Councillor Steve Hastings, member for Central White.
Councillor Hollis.
Good afternoon, I'm here.
Councillor Howe.
Councillor Howe, Totland. Thank you.
Thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Jones-Evans.
No,
Councillor.
No, Chair, I'm here.
Oh, you got here. Oh,
Hello,
brilliant.
yes, I made it.
You have made it onto my screen. Okay. Welcome then. So please introduce yourself.
Councillor Julie Jones-Evans, Newport Central.
Councillor Kilpatrick.
Yeah, Councillor John Kilpatrick, Binsted and Fishbourne.
Councillor Price.
Good afternoon, Chairman. Councillor Matthew Price.
And Councillor Tyndall.
Member for Brading, St Helens and Bembridge.
And I'm Councillor Quirk, member for Shanklin South. If we now move on to the agenda, move on to the minutes. You should have received a second set of minutes with a correction in them. Can you please advise me if there are any issues with the minutes from the last meeting? And if we have included the representation from the person from the Vice Society. Would someone like to propose approval of the minutes?
I'm happy to propose, Chair.
Would someone second that?
I'll second.
Everyone happy to go? Raise your hand, please. Yeah, there's lots of hands there. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. Members are asked to notify the clerk in advance of today's meeting to provide any declarations of interest. But if you believe you have an interest that you've not notified to the clerk, please indicate via the chat function now.
Yes, Chairman.
Yep.
I am Chairman of the Management Committee of the Early Years Centre on the site where the proposal is.
Okay, I don't think that's a reason for you to not vote. I don't believe we've received any questions from the public. Oh, sorry. Councillor Tyndall. I think you're muted.
As you know, I'm Cabinet Member for Resources, and one of those is the council assets. It doesn't really affect my decision on this, but I thought I'd just need to make that comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? Thank you very much. I don't believe we've received any questions from the public. Can one of the officers confirm that? Marie?
No, we've not received any public questions, Chairman.
Thank you very much. We move on to agenda item 4, planning applications. Better put my paper. So this is the, just a second. I'm sorry, I've lost the right page. Apologies for this. So this is planning reference 19/01426/full and 19. Oh, sorry, I've got the wrong one there. My apologies for this. I'm sorry, this is the application for the school in West White, and can we ask the officer to present?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen with you so that you can see the presentation. And then I'll start it on the slideshow. Right. So, Chairman, can you see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Good. Okay, so you can see the presentation. So, yeah, the application is for full planning permission to demolish the existing school buildings and to replace them with a new school. So I'll just run through the existing site location characteristics first, and then we'll go through the actual proposed plans. So in terms of the application site, it's located just to the east of the centre of Freshwater and its shopping centre. You'll see at the point of the cursor now on the left-hand side of the photograph, there's a run of buildings here. That marks the start really of where shops start in Freshwater. So there's a smattering of shops there and a curry house. And then moving up through further to the west is the main car park for the West White Sports Centre, and then the main sort of shopping area. So the actual site itself is fairly well screened. It's located on the northern side of School Green Road and it's accessed via Bannerman's Path. Just a confirmation then of the OS plan of the site. So you'll see a rather large sort of sprawling school building, if you like, in the centre of this plan. And then slightly to the east of that, you'll see an almost triangle-shaped building, and that's the early learning, the early years building that you heard one of the councillors refer to just now. I've got some photographs to show you of that in a moment. The blue hatching that you can see on the bottom of the plan is an area of School Green Road which is in flood zone 3, so at high risk of flooding, but you'll see that the rest of the site is outside that area as referred to in the officer report. And that's just confirmation of the red line boundary of the site. And then that red line site with a little bit more detail in it. So the white areas are the footprint of the existing buildings. Off to the east of the existing buildings, an area marked 4, which is an existing tarmac play pitch. And then the remainder, the eastern side of the site, includes a very large playing field, marked out football pitch, which wouldn't be affected by this development. And so the proposal is to replace the existing school building that you've seen in that plan. Just running through quickly through some photographs of the area and the site then. These photographs show the access to the site from School Green Road, the main road into Freshwater. And so the top photograph that you can see off to the left hand side or to the north is the junction with Bannerman's Lane, which takes you into the school itself. and there's no proposed changes to that junction. It will stay as it is. On the bottom photograph, that is the same junction, just looking in a different direction to the west, and what you'll see there is a recently laid signalised crossing for school children to cross who use the West White Sports Centre car park for parking, and then to walk down the road to the school. Moving on then, this is, sorry, slight delay on the system there. So these photographs here, which you can see marked with A's and B's on the plan as well, are photographs of the existing school access into the site. So you can see there, existing school access is fairly narrow, and also the pedestrian access between the two pillars there on the top photograph, and then on the bottom photograph, just looking down the access track again towards residential properties in Bannerman's Lane. Then some photographs of the existing school. The school's fairly enclosed and quite sprawling, so it's a bit difficult to take a sort of a wide landmark photograph of it. So we've had to take various photographs from discrete points. So this is the existing Victorian era, late Victorian era building there, typical Reform Act sort of school built at that time, stone built. And then zooming through to this building here, in the top is showing the entrance into the school on photograph A, the existing school building. Then photograph B is looking down towards the early years building, effectively a nursery building, and then photograph C is looking up towards the tarmac play area that I described earlier on, which is to the east of the existing building. And then a photograph of the when stood in the tarmac play area looking towards the early years building. Photograph B stood on that play area looking into the main school buildings behind the big stone building. And then photograph C is a slightly longer angle, again looking towards the eastern side of the school, but you can't see the older building because it's screened by trees. Then some photographs of the school looking at the rear. There you can see the in photograph A, you can see the sort of the back of the building and various structures there. Photograph B is looking at the back of the original older Victorian era school building, and then photograph C is then looking at the back of the more modern additions. I think it's fair to say that this building has been extended multiple times. It's a bit incoherent in its layout and its appearance as well. And so these photographs just showing the site boundaries from Long Halves, which is a public right of way, to the north of the site. And you get a good impression from photograph B of that sort of haphazard way that the school's been extended, and how it does look quite dated now, quite difficult buildings. And then a final photograph here of the school buildings looking from point B. If you look at point B, the bottom photograph, just looking at the back of the school on the right of way that runs up to the west of the site from Bannerman's Lane. And then zoom through, just showing the actual playing field. You can see the site's got a very large playing field. There's a zoomed in photograph B there, showing the neighbouring property off to the east, which is quite distant. And obviously there is the existing school there, which already affects that. Then moving on to some photographs, just showing the existing Victorian building and its current state. It is in quite a state. It suffers from water ingress. It's also suffered from land movement, with some sort of settling which has affected the building structurally. Hence it is proposed to be removed as the office report lays out. And then there's some photographs here which just shows some of the settlement that has affected this building over its lifetime. And you'll see in the office report the reasoning for that building to be removed rather than retained, along with its quite difficult layout for modern schooling purposes, we might say. So moving on to the proposals then, the proposal is to fully demolish the existing school and to replace it with a new purpose-built school, much like the schools that have been built in other areas of the island. So it's got a very simple rectangular layout. It would comprise seven teaching rooms or classrooms, and one specialist teaching space. And as you'll see on these pictures, there's proposals for a hall, a library at the school entrance, which I'll sort of hang my cursor over at the moment. This is the school entrance, with the school hall off to the left, a library straight in front, and then the typical sort of admin and office rooms and offices there, then leading off to a central corridor, which then allows easy access to a range of cloakrooms, loos, and the 7 classrooms, and then another specialist classroom. There'd also be school kitchens. And I think the important thing to note is that the replacement school would occupy the footprint, or a lesser extent actually, the footprint of the existing school. What's also proposed, you'll see, is for the existing play area to the east to be removed and replaced with an all-purpose pitch, again off to the east, and for the remainder of the sports pitch to be retained. And you will have seen in the report that Sporting and support that proposal. There's no objection from them in terms of impact on the playing space. Again, just confirmation that the nursery, if you want to put it that way, will be retained. And there's proposals for a new pedestrian access to segregate school children as they walk up through the site from vehicular traffic. And there would be a parking area created on the western side of the site, where the existing school sort of sprawls down over that boundary, to provide a range of parking spaces for visitors and staff. Then there's just some images of how the school would look then. So this is there is an image there of the proposed school, and then elevational drawings of the school, just showing the north, south, east and west elevations. It is generally single storing. It will be finished with buff brick, large areas of glazing to give a nice feel to the proposed classrooms, and obviously a larger school hall off to the west. The south elevation of that school hall would be constructed using the traditional stone that would be taken from the demolition of the old Victorian building, to pay some reference to that building. And then looking at some of the floor plans, just in closer view there, just you can see where the library would be as you enter the school, then leading through to the central corridor for the proposed classrooms and the various rooms within that building. I'm not going to pretend to know what all of those rooms are. And then again, looking at the cross sections of the school compared to the existing site levels. The site does slope down in a southerly direction, as you probably would have picked up from the plans. So, Chairman, the application is recommended for conditional permission, and that's the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I believe we only have one presentation from the public, and in fact it's not the public, it's the Cabinet Member for Children and Children's Service and Education. So Paul Brading, are you there?
I am, Chairman, yes.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Firstly, Chairman, can I say thank you for allowing me to speak on this application this evening in my Cabinet role. It's important. I thought I'd come and talk to the committee. Just a brief reminder, in March 2019, officers started to look at options to address what was a large and increasing amount of surplus primary places in the West White, which was putting all the schools under financial pressure. We undertook 3 extensive consultations, after which the decision was made to close the All Saints Primary School. It was then agreed that we would support the governing body of Yarmouth Primary School in their wishes to relocate to the All Saints site. This will give long-term sustainability to the remaining 4 schools and protects the education of all the young people in the West White now and into the future. The governing body decision to relocate was on the understanding of the agreement of investment from the Department of Education into this site. The All Saints site had been already identified and earmarked for an allocation of just under £1 million from the Priority Schools Building Programme 2, for some refurbishments to what Russell Chick's photograph showed to be a very old building, in need of some really major repairs. Comments from the parents in the final consultation were really around whatever happened to the building. They wanted to preserve the extensive outdoor spaces that has been highlighted, along with the woodland area the community had developed. And this is important that these areas were kept for the use and well used by the pupils. As the decisions were being made during the consultations and the governing body's request to relocate was confirmed, we had further dialogue with the Department of Education around the investment in the property, and we managed to persuade them that a major total rebuild was the best option rather than spending £1 million on refurbishments, because over the years refurbishments had been done, bits have been added to. And this will represent the biggest single investment by the government in the West White, which many people locally feel is well overdue. It's a great outcome. I assured parents and the community we would take their comments regarding outdoor space in forestry areas seriously. This application does all of that. I also said we look to give them a new school with a one-form entry system to allow for future growth in the area. And as already been shown on the plans, what this gives them is a state-of-the-art school, 7 classrooms, safe access routes to the school, adequate parking, a much larger main hall, separate DT suites, tech rooms, art room, and sufficient office space and meeting rooms, as well as a library. So the design actually ticks all the boxes for what we promised to give this first-class facility for the young people of the West White, which they deserve to learn and thrive in. There were only a few comments on the planning application on the system. There were 2 objections I read. One was really around the decision of the governing body itself to move, which isn't really relevant to the application. One was around retaining part of the old building. That was looked at. Wasn't possible to maintain any of the old building, but I'm pleased to see that the traditional stone of the walls is being used on the wall of the hall, so we'll keep a little bit of the old building in place. It increases the outdoor hard and soft play areas and really gives the outdoor spaces that the children deserve and Sport England support. So in summary, this new school will provide a fantastic facility for pupils of the West White to learn and develop in, maintains all the outdoor hard and soft play areas and playing fields, and it is fit for purpose for many years to come. It also fits the goal that I've always had of ensuring that young people on the island have the best possible start in life they deserve and that we can give them. So I do very much hope that the committee shares my goals and ambitions for the young people of the West White and are able to give this application the unanimous support and approval. Thank you for allowing me the time to speak to yourself as the members.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bailey. Russell, would you like to add anything?
No, thank you, Chairman. I don't think so.
Okay. Matt Price.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it's helpful that Councillor Brading just gave that sort of introduction to this, because as Councillor Brading knows, I spoke with him on many occasions about the decision. It's not a planning decision, but the decision to effectively close Yarmouth Primary School and move it to this site. We know there's overcapacity over there, and obviously this does address that, and it ticks a lot of boxes with regards to the facility and the modern kind of teaching environment that's needed. I've got sort of 3 issues that I'd like to sort of clarify. One is obviously this is going to bring children from other areas of the West White that don't currently travel into this area of the West White, because all the pupils from Yarmouth Primary School will be coming to this site. My issue with that is that obviously they're going to have to be driven there generally, and there doesn't seem to be any allowance for any kind of drop-off. You know, some primary schools have adapted to having to accommodate people that have to drop their children to school by car, And you have to have children at primary school and work to understand the logistics of that one, because we'd all love to walk our children to school, but it's not always physically practical. I'm a little bit surprised that there isn't something worked into this scheme to allow that. You'd only have to have a horseshoe sort of or a crescent just within the entrance, which I would have thought could have been engineered into this site easily to allow people that are having to now come further afield to bring their children to that school, to allow for that. Now, I'm sure that there'll be the suggestion that there's enough capacity in the local network for that. But actually, I know Freshwater quite well, and you'd have to park some way away to then walk your child there. The public car park you've got to pay to park in, which obviously is another extra thing for parents to have to pay for. So I'd certainly, it's not something I doubt that we can introduce into this scheme now, but my first question is, can we, without having, can this be something that can be introduced at this stage? If not, why isn't it included? Secondly, looking at the increase in staff that are going to be required at this school, I do not see enough on-site capacity for parking, and it is unfair to expect teaching staff to park off-site, because there is nowhere for them to park in Freshwater other than paid parking. You could say, well, that's their problem, but if we're building a new facility, we should address that issue, because you're going to be attracting good quality teachers from all over the island to work at this site. So I think we should be addressing the on-site parking capacity. And the last thing is, obviously we've been in a period of trying to continue education during the pandemic. And I just wonder, with the construction of this and the layout of this school, whether it does, I'm sure it doesn't, but I just wonder how it would work as a real modern facility if we live in a world where pandemics are part of what we have to live with. So I just wonder if those, I'm happy to go over them again if they could be clarified. Overall, I'm not against this at all. I think it's a fantastic facility. It's just those issues I think we do need to discuss and have addressed. Thank you.
Russell, would you like to come back on that?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, I'm just trying to get the PowerPoint to go back a few slides. I'd like to say to zoom back through the slides, but it's not that quick. Okay. I'm trying to get to this photograph. Right, so I mean, in terms of the drop-off, the school already operates without a drop-off in the school. And that is mainly due to the fact that Bannerman's Path, which leads to the school, it's shown as School Green Lane on this image, is very, very narrow. And if I then just go on to the photographs that I've taken of the site entrance.
We can't hear you. We can't see your images.
Right, it did pop up just now and say that someone else had taken control of the slides. I don't know what happened there. Right, I'll just get the PowerPoint back up. Okay, can you see now?
We've got your initials up. Hopefully, yeah, it's come up now. Yep.
Okay, good. Right. These images then show the access into the site, which is quite tight, and it wouldn't be suitable for cars to pass. There are some issues with trying to rejig that access, in that, as you can see, there is a bridge just to the east of the road into the school, and also some quite significant trees. And so having to remodel all of that would have significant impact on how that street scene looks at the moment. It's quite attractive. It's got quite a rural look to it. And given that the existing school can take 240 students and that the proposed school would take exactly the same number, it wasn't felt justified to start completely changing the entrance into the site and the street scene, and to insist on a drop-off point in the school. At the moment, the school operates a travel plan, and it would again for the replacement school, in that parents can park up at the car park at West White Sports Centre. Showing my age now, calling it a school, which does have a very large car park, and in the morning does have capacity for parents to drive there. Then there's a good, safe, wide pavement to walk down School Green Lane Road and over the crossing point and into the school, and I believe that's what most parents do. So that is a proposal for this site, for parents to walk their children to school from that area. So people travelling in, if they do need to, for children that don't live in Freshwater and can't walk, that's the situation for that part of the site. I'm not sure what happens in terms of paying for parking. I know at Yarmouth Primary School there is a dispensation scheme where at the car park there, the parents have slips, so they don't need to pay for a parking ticket every time they drop their children off. I'd imagine that's what happens at this school as well. In terms of the parking numbers for the staff, the plan showed that, well, the information supporting the application showed that there would be 27 staff on the site, 10 teachers, and then the remaining staff. And the proposals show that there would be 21 parking spaces. There is an increase in parking spaces. I think it's 11 more parking spaces than there are at the moment. And then obviously it would rely on staff then getting to the site through other means. But you know, that amount of parking spaces is considered suitable for this site. In terms of the third point, I'm not really sure how to respond to that, about how the school operates as a facility during a pandemic. I'd imagine that the fact that it's open at the moment, that schools are open at the moment, mean that there's sufficient measures in place to satisfy the powers that be that the school can open safely. But ultimately, that's not really a planning decision. You are looking at the land use and the building. How that building operates with other legislation is something outside of the planning process. So I hope that helps, Chairman.
Thank you very much. George, Councillor Cameron. George.
Thank you, Chairman. I didn't know if the local member would have wanted to comment on the application, but if I can make a comment, I would like to thank our cabinet member and the officers for working so hard on this application. I think it's a brilliant opportunity for our children in the West White, and the site itself lends itself perfectly to a brilliant school, and you know, they'll spend many years happily there. And the transport issue, I'm sure from the consultations, I believe that there's a very few children that actually lives in Yarmouth that would travel to the school, because the majority, I think over 72 pupils, are actually living in the area of Freshwater, so they'll be finding that a bit easier. I've got one question, and that is, I noticed it's a flat roofed building, which is quite nice. But I was wondering if we could use opportunity to install solar panels or something like that, to, you know, just to show some green credentials. And of course, I've got another question as well. My interest in the early years centre, I noticed from the drawings there is no provision for the early years or the nursery side of the school, but yet the Little Stars nursery is moving along with the school, alongside where there's already an established nursery or early years centre. I don't know how the two is going to work out, so we'll have to see how that pans out. But overall, I think it's a good project, and I think everybody worked hard on it, and I thank them for that. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Bodie.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just some clarification from Mr. Chick, please. Russell, can you put up the slide that shows the new pedestrian access to the proposed site arrangement? I think that's the one, Russell. Thank you. I'm just a little puzzled that we talked about a new pedestrian route, which I think is the speckled area onto the site, and the route into the new double-sized car park. There's a conflict area, isn't there? And I find that puzzling as to why we've got that here. Surely we should be making that pedestrian route much safer than them having to potentially cross against traffic. Now, I appreciate it'll be mainly staff using that car park, but not always. And it just seems to me that there's an opportunity to avoid that conflict that's been missed here. Is there any reason why we haven't dealt with it properly?
Russell, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Brodie. I mean, I haven't been involved in discussions of how this scheme has evolved, and I suppose we have to look at the plans that are in front of us. The comments we've received from Ireland Roads have been that the proposals are safe, so they've not raised any concerns in terms of how people will get into the school. I don't know if Alan White wants to make any comments, but as you can see, that those routes are segregated. So the areas shown in dark grey are the areas for vehicular traffic, and then the areas in light grey are the areas where that will just be the general circulation space around the site. So obviously there's a crossing point across that main access, but I don't know if Alan wants to comment on that any further.
Alan, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Chair. I think what I'd like to point out, it's like Russell said, the speckled pedestrian route does cross the principal vehicular access there. There would be a zebra crossing type of arrangement there. It's a low speed environment, but I think what also needs to be highlighted is that the actual side of the plot, there is a pedestrian route, and right at the top of the drawing, highlighted by number 26, there's a secondary pedestrian access, which would allow site users direct access into the school premises without having to cross the access road.
Sorry, where's that? Is that the top left?
It's at the top left, yes. It's highlighted by number 26.
So there will be a route.
Yeah.
Well, it's not marked, Alan, that I can see. I know that area very well. I walk Long Harps regularly and down that one to the west down to School Green Road. Now, it looks to me that you'd have to walk north to south down to join the pedestrian access. There's no other route into the school. And knowing primary schools, it'll all be extremely secure around its perimeter for safeguarding reasons. I'm just a bit puzzled that, we've created a conflict zone with a new school. And it would seem to me that that's just a real miss, to be honest. And I'll say it again, Island Roads always seem to prioritise the vehicle against the pedestrian. And it's about time we start to put pedestrians first. We want to encourage people to walk their children to school, but we create a conflict situation.
Yeah, I think the point to make, though, as well, Councillor Brodie, it's a fair point in terms of obviously the safety of the children, is that the car park there is for staff. It's not for other parents to be dropping their children off. So that is for the staff who will be at the school. They'll probably already be there by the time that the children are being dropped off, and no doubt there might be the odd vehicle movement there. But obviously there's also the need to sort of balance up how the whole site works, and so the school is placed on the footprint of the existing school to use those existing excavated site levels. The western car park's over in an area of the site's already developed, and that minimises the impact on trees as well. So it's balancing up all of those issues in that sort of melting pot.
Okay.
I don't agree.
Okay. Councillor Howe, John.
Thank you, Chairman. I must say that was my school at one time, many, many years ago, and I was very proud of the building, but I think that it's come to its end of its useful use, so it's good to see that they're actually pulling the whole thing down and starting again. And I would just like to say, along with George Cameron, actually, that the work that was put in by Councillor Brading into getting this done, I would like to thank him, because for the children of the West White and my area of Totland, who will be, a lot of the children will be going from there, I'm very pleased and very happy with it. As I say, as an ex-pupil, I'm very sad to see it go. There was one question for Russell, if you don't mind, who I think's done a lot of good work on this, is that the hallway, is that a multi-purpose use for that hall, like indoor sports and stuff like that? Thank you.
Russell, would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, so it will be a modern school hall, so it can be used for anything that the school needs. So I'd imagine it'd be used for the dining area, but also it will have all the facilities that would allow the children to learn a whole range of sports. So yeah, it'd be a fit for purpose. It would be larger than the existing school at the site, and it would just be, a well-appointed facility indoors, for indoor play and indoor sports when the need arises.
Thank you very much. Councillor Jones-Evans. Julie.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on the 2 points that Councillor Price had made regarding the dropping off, but I think Mr. Schick has clarified that when there's obviously a park and stride facility over at Mower Place, so that makes perfect sense. But again, Councillor Brody, I agree with him regarding this access to the school. It doesn't make sense having this conflict point. When you look at the plans, you could just think you could just have all the car parking straight in all the way up on that left-hand side of the plan as we see now, and then you could have a completely separate path. So that, yeah, I just find that strange. To be mild, but is the crossing point for the path over the driveway, is it going to be a raised platform there? So it shows, with the build, that the pedestrians take priority over vehicles, or will it just be a painted zebra crossing?
Russell, would you like to answer that, if you know?
Well, I might defer to Alan White, actually. I mean, he said that there'll be a zebra-style crossing across there, so obviously that will raise people's awareness as they're coming in and out of the site. But also, like I said before, it will be staff coming in and out of that parking area, so they'll be well aware of the children as they come in and out. But if Alan might want to comment on that further as well. But obviously, for you as members, it's for you to debate, you're the decision makers in terms of how that works. So it could be that if needs be, the conditions can be jigged, just to say, how you might want that crossing to be erased, to be designed when it is finally designed, when we get the details in, to maybe be one of these slightly raised crossing points, those kind of measures. I mean, no doubt Hampshire County Council have thought of those things when they've put together the scheme, but it is something for you maybe to think about. But I'll ask Alan just to comment on it as well, if that's right, Alan.
Alan,
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Russell. My understanding is it will be a raised crossing point, so it gives pedestrians priority. But like Russell said, if members deem it necessary, I see there no harm in adding an additional condition that could to provide that assurance. But that is my understanding of it. That it will be the detailed design will include for a raised crossing area there to give pedestrians priority.
Thank you. I just come back in, Chair. Thank you. I think that makes perfect sense, because you know what we like when the kids are running into school or out of school on their scooters, they just go, don't they? And they're not always aware, and children aren't that great at judging vehicle speeds, and where it's curved like that, they probably wouldn't better see them coming maybe either. So, you know, so children being children, we have to redesign this for safety as much as we can. So if there is a raised platform there, that would be allay some of my concerns. But it seems in a site as large as this, why they're not completely separate, I don't, like Councillor Brodie, I don't quite understand why they haven't been separated out.
Okay, Councillor Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman. The question that I was going to ask, I think, has been touched upon by members so far, but I want to really ask whether there is a school travel plan in place, and what steps has this application done to address issues that have been identified in the school travel plan. The second question that I've got is the flat roof, and I just wanted to ask whether that is properly future-proofed and it will work, because we know that with flat-roofed schools in the past, they haven't worked as well as maybe they should have done. And I just wanted to have some assurance on the flat roof, and also about consideration of the school travel plan, because there's nothing written within the report concerning that. Thank you.
Flat roofs always have a finite life, but
thank you, Chairman. Yeah, in terms of a travel plan, I mean, most schools do have existing travel plans, and I'm aware that All Saints already do have one, as does its partner school at Yarmouth. And so the school normally puts into place a travel plan itself without us conditioning one. I mean, if members saw fit, we could add a condition. There isn't currently a condition for a travel plan, but a condition could easily be added to say that details of a travel plan will be agreed and then implemented prior to the first use of the replacement school, something along those lines. And that's not unusual, but you know, we do that pretty regularly. I think there was one at Cowes when Cowes Primary School, Gurner Primary School moved. In terms of the flat roof, I mean, ultimately that's a decision, obviously, for the developer, if you want to put it that way. The applicant, officers don't generally get involved in planning applications in terms of longevity of materials unless it's a listed building. So I would assume that some form of long-term flat roof system will be used. Obviously, materials have evolved over the last few years, so that the normal sort of tarmac systems that we used in the past that disintegrated after 10 or 15 years have been superseded by much better systems. So I'd imagine that those sorts of materials will be used instead. I think there was a reference to solar panels as well before. I mean, obviously, again, that's something for the schools to think about. But what I would highlight is that obviously the existing school is very historic. It will be very poor quality in terms of insulation, whereas the submitted documents, sign and access statement, make it very clear that this school will be heavily insulated. That a lot of work has been put in terms of making it as well insulated as possible. They'll be using low level energy light bulbs, low level energy heating systems as well. So it will be a much better facility in that respect. Thank you, Chairman.
Sorry, Chairman, can I come back, please? I think Russell probably missed the point of the question that I was asking. Most schools have school travel plans in place, and the question that I was putting to Russell is in accordance with the current school travel plan for All Saints Church, All Saints School. What aspects of their travel plan have been incorporated within this new plan? School travel plans are very important because they discourage car use, and I just wanted to know really how officers have looked at the current school travel plan for the existing school and accommodated some of the wishes within that school travel plan for this new application. Not about putting a school travel plan in place, because that should already be there. Thank you.
Russell, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, so as you would see in the officer report, I mean, the whole aim of not having a drop-off point at this site is to discourage people from driving, and it is to walk to the site. And a high number of the pupils who come to this school do come from Freshwater, and obviously the school drop-off at the school gates or inside the school is discouraged. And I think that's one of the points the officer makes in the report, is that if there was one on site, it would mean that people do rely on car travel. So the existing travel plan for the school is that the parents do walk to the school where possible, or if that's not possible and it has to be by car, to park at School Green Road in West White Sports Centre car park, and then walk down the road and drop off the children in that way. And so that's how it's been taken into account on this application, is to keep it effectively as it is, because by putting in a drop-off point on the site would make it very easy, wouldn't it, for anyone to just drive the car straight up to the school gates and drop off the children there.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hastings.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I'm just going back to Councillor Brodie's point, the vehicular pedestrian conflict. It's not very clear, I mean, because it's so small, I can't see it that well, but could the pedestrian path not run to the right-hand side of the roadway? And I'm looking at an entry point at what looks like number 14. And as I say, I can't see what number 14 is, but from about that position, couldn't the path simply run on the right-hand side of the roadway?
Russell, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I mean, for knowing the site, I mean, I think that part of the site slopes quite steeply, and there's some landscaping there, so I don't think it's really feasible. Also, that part of the site is also starting to get in the realms of the flood area, and so it's trying to keep that path as much as possible away from that flood zone. So I think with everything that there's a need to balance up a range of issues, and I think that's why that path is there. It also connects directly up to the pretty wide footway that is on the northwestern side of Bannerman's Path. So what you can see in the white bit off to the bottom corner of the plan on the left hand side, at the point of the cursor now, hope you can see that, is the existing footpath which runs up the side from School Green Lane. So if you then move the path to the other side, all the children have got to do is cross at another point on the highway, but outside of the school site itself. So where there is actually non-school traffic as well. So I think it makes sense to connect the footpath to the existing footway rather than have to then form a crossing right at the point of the entrance to the site. It's better to have it within the site where people are aware that it's a school. Naturally, the vehicle speeds are lower, and those people using that access are the teaching staff and the support staff involved with the school.
Okay, thank you, Russell. That makes sense.
Thank you, Russell. Russell, can you take the image down now so that we can actually see other members?
Absolutely, that's no problem at all.
Chair, could you leave it actually, because I've got a comment about that.
Okay, if you've got a comment. Sorry, Russell, can you put it back?
Yeah. Let me just get the right one. Is that it?
It hasn't come up yet.
It should come up in a moment.
Yeah.
Can you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Councillor Brodie.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Apologies, I couldn't unmute fast enough to stop Russell doing it. Just a comment, really. I mean, I've asked my question earlier on, and I'm going to vote in favour of this application. I think it's great to have a new school there, but I'd just like to make a comment, really, that I think opportunities are being missed with this application. If it provided the pedestrian access is a raised area, I can live with that, though I do think a bit of an imagination could have dealt with it. I think the issue of the flat roof, I think there's a real opportunity being missed there in terms of solar panels. You could have a sloped roof with solar panels tilted towards the south, which would have addressed some of the environmental concerns that people increasingly have. But the main comment I want to make is when you look at this site plan, you look at the amount of space that's taken by the school, and then to the left, look at the amount of area taken by car parking. The car parking is taking more of the site than the site of the new school. I think that's deeply worrying. And I think Russell said that the existing site has 11 car parking spaces, and we're providing 21 here. And it seems to me, why on earth are we doing this? Why are we encouraging more and more cars to come onto this site at a time when we should be discouraging the use of the motor car near schools? Interestingly enough, School Green Road, obviously to the south of this, has two one certainly very regular bus service, the number 7, and the number 12, which isn't regular, I wouldn't say that, but also passes alongside there. I've used them when I go out walking, etc. on the island. They're reasonably regular bus services. I do think that we've got to start looking at, environmental effect of some of the applications that have been presented to us, certainly in-house. This is an in-house application by our partners at Hampshire. I do think there's a real absence of imagination in this. Okay, but as I say, I will be voting for it, but I do hope that in the future we get a better standard of application than this. Thank you, Chair.
Chairman, I think you're on mute.
Can't hear.
My apologies. I think we're at the stage that we can probably think about moving to a vote. Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, Chairman. I think it's a good project, and I would like to propose it to be approved according to the officer's recommendation. But I would like to add on there that they do need a travel plan in place. I think it is necessary for the site. Given that the car park is 200 yards up the road, they will walk. They do need a school travel plan in place, and entering that site as well. The current conversation we just had with a pathway crossing there is an existing one at exactly the same place, so that it won't make much difference. And the traffic speed is very, very slow. You talk about half the speed of the inner car park of County Hall, if that. So, but I would like to recommend this for approval on the proviso that they have a travel plan in place, a school travel plan.
Would you like to add?
As an ex-pupil of the school, I think I'm probably the only one here that is an ex-pupil of the school. I would like to second George's proposal.
Would you like to add the condition for the raised crossing?
Yes, I would.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
Please.
Officers, have you got the gist of that you can put it into some words for the conditions? Not now, following the meeting. Russell?
Right, hopefully you can hear me now.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, in terms of the raised crossing point, what I was suggesting was not a new condition, but simply to tweak one of the existing conditions. So there's conditions relating to both vehicular and pedestrian access. It'd probably be the vehicular access that will cover the crossing point. But if you're happy, we can just tweak that to say, you know, details shall include, and they will include measures for raising that, you know, a kind of table crossing, if you like. In terms of the travel plan, it's a very simple condition. It would simply just say something along the lines of, you know, prior to the commencement of the development hereby approved, the travel plan shall be submitted to and agreed, aimed at reducing vehicular traffic to the site, something along those lines. That's fine. We can lift that from another school that's got a similar condition if you're happy with that. Thank you, Chairman.
That's fine. Can we actually take the image down now? Thank you very much. Are members ready to put this to the vote? Yep. We have to have a name vote here because of the COVID regulations. So we're voting in favour of approving or if for or against approving this application. Councillor Beston.
For.
Councillor Bodie.
In favour.
Councillor Cameron.
For.
Councillor Fuller.
For.
Councillor Hastings.
For.
Councillor Hollis.
For.
Councillor Howe.
For.
Councillor Jones-Evans.
For.
Councillor Kilpatrick.
For.
Councillor Price.
For.
Councillor Tyndall.
For.
And Councillor Quirk. For. So that application is approved unanimously. Members' question time. Have we had any members' questions submitted?
Chairman, I've not been notified of any.
And I haven't been notified of any, so in which case I'll close the meeting. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Chair.
Good night, Chair. Thank you.
Cheerio.
John Howe. John Howe.
Thank you.
John Yes. Howe.
Yes.
John, it's Richard Hollis. I think you must be very disappointed because when you were at school,